Greetings and blessings, family. One love. Jesse Tree here with my new friend Matt Roeske of how do I say your name, Matt?
Roeske.
Roeske of Cultivate Elevate. And Matt, I've been watching Matt for a couple of years now, and he has a wide breadth of knowledge about all things sort of controversial and the electric universe and what have you. So just he founded Cultivate Elevate to bring back information that has been suppressed and cause society to become sicker and weaker. His mission is to educate and empower individuals to rise above the state of fear because there is always solutions. And I really resonate with your mission, Matt, and I thank you for joining me today.
I thank you for having me on, and happy to talk about some solutions to the nonsense.
Yes, indeed. Wonderful. Well, to kind of frame the conversation, I wanted to talk about Prana, the electric universe, and the end of lack, because we live in a time where there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of sense that there's not enough, energy, food, not enough resources of all kinds, water, or health, access to health. And so my experience has been that through permaculture and herbalism and sort of the breatharian path, that the universe is conspiring in our favor, not against us, and that we have everything we could ever need right at our feet, or all around us, so to speak.
I like how you said that. And I think that's important for people to realize that we're not running out of anything. We're not running out of air. We're not running out of water. We're not running out of food. We're not running out of anything. And even with the energy, like you said, everything is connected to the ether and the energy that's all around us, the chi, the prana, the orgone, the life force, the ode energy or odile energy. And all of these terminologies have been considered woo-woo and pseudoscience, as we've been told by our, Rockefeller educational system. But, everything is unlimited. And the more you get into it, the more you start to realize that we have abundance all around us. But we're programmed into a fear state to make us believe that we're running out of things. And when I got into my journey of just even to electroculture and people growing food and utilizing electroculture, harnessing the ether, the beautiful energy that's all around us, they started increasing yields. They had more pollinators, they had more birds, they had more bees, more food, and they didn't have to use as much water. They didn't have to use as much water as they traditionally did. But that was just taking a little bit of copper and bringing it back into the soil and creating atmospheric antennas to gather the energy that's all around us. And the more I got into this topic, and then I got into water, learning about how we're never running out of water because Mother Earth is always producing water that's coming out of our feet. This is why when people go into mines, a lot of those mines would flood out because the water is just coming up from inside the earth, always regenerating 24/7, 365. And then when I got into energy and reading about atmospheric energy and the ether and all the old world antennas and all the buildings which were tapping in because of the resonance and the materials in which they were using, you start to see that somebody knew a lot about energy, because you see a lot of, for example, light bulbs that are lit in about 1882, 1881, all that time frame, thousands and thousands, to a point of it almost looks like millions. And you sit there and go, well, how were they getting all this energy? Where was all of this energy coming from? Because when you look at when the introduction of electricity and all of that came, the timelines don't add up to the pictures that you see in the 1880s and 1870s and timelines like that. But it's just remarkable when you start getting into all of these things, you see that a lot of this was removed off the periodic table. Ether was removed off the periodic table in 1908, so that we kind of stayed away from that. And then as that kind of turned into the future and you went, 19, 20, 30s, 40s, 50s, people started disconnecting themselves from it. And like you were even saying about doing breath work, absorbing the ether, because you have the air and the earth, all the energy that's all around us, and taking that in, bringing oxygen to every part and every cell. It's energy. I mean, that's how you, if you think about like a lot of tribes and cultures, they pump themselves up with breath work, chanting, dancing, and absorbing all that energy. So it's up to us to really kind of take a different step and look a different way than the fear that we've been put into, and look at it like the abundance that has always been here.
I totally resonate with everything you just said. Being a permaculturist, that was my experience when I started to do agroforestry and food forest gardening, as I began to see that human beings could do something that was good for the earth, and that not only that, but the earth would bring this enormous abundance back to us. And I started working with electroculture this year, and I had beehives that had been absconded. I had wax moth in one of the hives, and so the bees left. And I cleaned out the hive, and I tried to bait it for a number of years, and couldn't catch a swarm. But this year, when I put in electroculture, the bees came. As you said. And also with respect to what you said about the breath, I've been studying the breatharian science, which is all this stuff as well. You speak a lot about grounding, sun gazing, sunbathing, and even breath work. This all creates, and movement, sound, color, all these things bring energy into the body. And that, I think this is going to be the new cutting edge of health sciences, and it's actually a field now of, I think they call it quantum biology, where they're looking at like the exclusion zone water in your body and seeing how there's a positive charge on one side of the exclusion zone and a negative charge on the other. And there's the whole thing of alkalinity and acidity and breath work, and all these ways that we can just bring energy in that's all around us, whether that you call that, the 0 point field, or, prana, or what have you. There's more energy in a single square inch of space than we could use in like 1,000 years, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, you can't tell the Rockefellers that. That's the thing. You can't tell that about that, because that would debunk all of the systems that we currently have in place. And the systems that are running out of energy, as we're always told. And the more I looked back into the past, you got into a fellow named Nathan B. Stubbenfield, who was creating batteries that he was placing into the earth. And what he noticed was when he took those batteries and put them into the earth, they would get stronger and stronger just by the earth charging the battery to a point in which there was a discharge. So same thing with the electroculture that you were doing with your beehives. You're bringing back that energy, and those bees are attracted to it. Because if you think of little bees, buzzing around, you hear all that energy or electricity that's coming off them as they buzz, and then they levitate. And they're almost creating, in my opinion, a static field the entire time, which allows them to levitate. And you hear that the whole time. But it's just remarkable when you get into all of these things, because that's what Mother Nature is trying to show us. Victor Schauberger was big in you replicate nature, and nature will go with you. If you go against nature and you put cell phone towers and all kinds of weird stuff all over, then nature is going to fall apart. But we have to work, like you said, on our land, on our soil, work with our land, work with the plants, the animals. I see the birds in front of me right now. They're all connected. Even the sound effects that come from the beautiful birds that open up the stomatas and allow all the nutrients to come into the plant. Everything is interconnected. And like you said, the energy that comes from this, if you get into cymatics and sound frequency and all of those things, everything is a vibration. Everything is a frequency or a fractal or a design. And, the more we amplify that, the more we bring all that back. And like you said, with permaculture, that's what you're doing. You're working everything in unison, rather than our traditional monoculture farming, which is usually one crop that's sprayed with about 4 billion pounds of glyphosate, which is an anti-life product. And then you don't have any meshing, anything meshing. You don't have birds and bees and little butterflies and all these beautiful things working together, because you've decimated everything there. And then you have a lot of poisonous food as an outcome, which if the food has become poisonous, how do we eat it? How do we believe that can sustain, Mother Earth? It doesn't make any sense. But if we have all this abundance and we use the permaculture and the electroculture, and, you get into the even work of Steiner and all the stuff with the BD prep that he used to do, and the quartz and crystals, you get so much into this, you see we could have more than we ever expected. And Mother Earth is always giving that all the time. It's just up to us to if we choose to connect or disconnect.
100%. And what you talk about so many interesting subjects, and they all interrelate, like the architecture, and the architecture of the ancients, pyramids, and stupas, and all the different kinds of energy architecture that are put on ley lines and nodes and stuff. And now we have cell towers, and I've always thought of cell towers sort of as like an electromagnetic prison for the earth and the people of the earth. And I really love that you share about how to get off the Wi-Fi and get into a direct landline connection. But there's a similar corollary with us, that we can get a direct connection in with nature by spending time in nature and working with nature. And in permaculture, we're challenged to grow 8 acres of food on 1 acre by, like you said, like a coherent system that is self-perpetuating and layered. And and then I think about the addition of things like electroculture and Steiner's biodynamics and all these things you start stacking on. And nature is an abundance machine. And we forget that everyone's chanting about abundance and manifestation, but our true abundance is life, and life is an abundance machine. And so we will be going with the flow of life if we start to interject ourselves in the environment in this way, and we'll be rewarded with health, long life, a beautiful world, and sovereignty. And I think this is really the medicine of our age, that we empower ourselves to do so. So love what you do, Matt. Love it.
Thank you, brother. And I think that that's really important. Like you said, is we need to connect to everything, whether it's permaculture, whether it's electroculture, whether it's dolmens. Remember when they used to take the stones and they would stack them on top of each other, and they would create little dolmens and place those all over the different areas of the ley lines? That's another one too, to amplify the energy. And I've actually experimented with stacking stones to see what would happen. Very large stones put into different fields, creating my own fields, like you said. And then when you get into these towers and these power lines and all of these other things, they're doing the opposite. Like you said, they're making a grid, and they're pretty much reducing the life force in that grid. And what's interesting too is you always see the towers placed right by water. That was always the most interesting thing. Everywhere here, for example, in Scottsdale, Arizona, the towers run up and down, right up down the canal, up and down the water. And the water takes on messages. The water takes on energy. So if that water now is coming in through the pipes into your home, now you have the water that's been destructured from the message that is being sent from that tower. So we have to connect back into structuring, because everything is about destructuring on this side. But even barefoot grounding, like you said, very important to connect to Mother Earth. Take off your shoes, take your shirt off, whatever it may be, lay on the ground like a starfish and connect to the earth. You don't even need just your bare hands. You need your whole body, because every cell is meant to be connected. And then Mother Earth will also give you information. I've sat out in nature plenty of times and just had an epiphany, and it's just because information is constantly around us. And that goes back into the ether situation as well. The information is all around. We don't need computers and anything else too. We just need to tap in. And the more we become tapped in, the more we start to see how all this connects back to all the ancient practices and ancient buildings that you mentioned too. You see all of those and sit there and go, these are remarkable work of arts. The fractals and designs and all the beauty that's just there. And you sit there and think, how was this crafted? Did they use sound? Did they use light? It almost looks like someone almost took a horn and was just crafting, the stone and the granite and the quartz and these things, because it's too perfect. They weren't sitting around with a hammer and chisel, just sitting hammering and chisel and doing that, because you would have an error rate, even if it was 1%, there would still be quite an error, So you get into this and go, there's so much more. And they spend a lot of time, I can see it right now, trying to block out the skies and do all the stuff that they're doing to try to lower our energy levels, lower our consciousness, dim the energy, and dim the awakening that's happening throughout society. because as people are kind of going through everything, and I think 2020 was the catalyst, but, being healthy, not feeling good, being very disconnected from the earth, all of those things I feel are resonating even more now. And people are just kind of over it. And it's only going to continue to happen where people are going to start to see, I could do this naturally and there's no side effects. Or I could do this side and it's just all side effects and leads to even not a good path for my future.
100%. It's interesting because they're spraying out here today too. I was going to do this video outside so I could just be in nature while we talked. And, they came over and sprayed and everything turned gray. And today is the conjunction of the sun and the galactic center, which is kind of, auspicious. And that's something that comes to mind too, is, just thoughts about the Schumann resonance and the way, 2012, they talk about in some of the astrological information that, the Kali Yuga was us going away from the galactic center, and 2012 was turning the corner and coming back in. And now we're being washed by these waves of light coming from the galactic center. And that's pinging the Schumann resonance, so that now we're having these massive spikes. There's a big coronal mass ejection the other day, or a couple of them, that really, perturbed the Schumann frequency. And I believe, you also have your pineal gland, which has this microcrystalline structure that is perfect for wireless transmission and reception, as well as your DNA. And I think that what's happening is essentially ascension, where as we go back in toward the galactic center, it's going to awaken our DNA, awaken us from the inside out. And we're going to be, able to understand the technology of, pyramid building again, and, maybe be psychic, the whole thing of breatharianism. I've been living on just liquids for 6 years now, but it started with me getting into this information like 13 years ago, and just started sun gazing and changing my diet and grounding at that time, and then working with meditation more regularly, and energy cultivation, because it's not about just not eating food. It's about switching our bodies over to a more subtle form of energy. And you talked about getting downloads from grounding. When I would sun gaze, afterwards I'd cup my eyes, and I remember seeing all this light play and patterns of geometries and things. Like literally I was getting codes from the sun, and I believe this is just something that is always happening. And these practices just dial us in. It's more like that direct, just like the Ethernet cable. You say, if you plug that in, you get higher quality reception. Same with if we plug into nature in this way. And so I think it's really actually potentially the beginning of a very beautiful time for humanity, as we reawaken to ourselves and regenerate and rehabilitate our planet, and get away from these systems of control that have been designed by the Rockefellers, etc. The cabal of, however many families has been controlling the situation on planet Earth for millennia. And we're going to realize, everyone has this unique divine intelligence inside of us, and that is the energy, that is the prana and the chi that we're just like a conduit of. So
I like how you said that, because 2012, if you remember, they inverted that. Remember, they were saying like everything's going to be the end. It's always the end. They always say that every day is the end.
Yeah.
But the 2012 was that significant day. But then if you say it that way, now you're saying it the true side. Because everything's always inverted. And it's just something interesting to think about, because maybe there was a shift that began at that time. I think Dolores Cannon talked about that too, that there would be that shift in humanity and it would just continue. And it feels like that, because even the interest in which people are taking now of topics and energy and pyramids and history and all these things, I feel like it's accelerating like this. You know, it's faster than ever. I mean, the stuff of the nonsense that we are always broadcast, you can see is just, they're just losing views and people just don't really care for it. And it'll just keep shifting like that. And as you said, with sun gazing, it's funny because over here in Arizona, you know, the sun will be, there'll only be a haze as the sun is setting or as the sun is rising, which is funny because that's the time in which you do your sun gazing to get all the different spectrums of light into the eyes. And it's funny that you say that because when I go to bed sometimes at nighttime, I'll see all the colors. I'll see it while just before I'm about to go to sleep, like I'm going into, you know, the next state. I'll see the colors and see almost like, you know, flashing and different things, like you said, geometry and shapes and things. But that's the other thing, is that that sun is giving us beautiful information. And when I do a ton of sun gazing, but in the past too of doing sun gazing, I've seen things or kind of rethought things. You know, I was sitting there thinking about one day like the moon, and I'm like, some of these things don't make any sense, what I've been told, you know, and whatever. And these epiphanies would kind of just come out. And, you know, it's interesting too, because they say the ancients used to eat the sun, you know, for energy and to awaken the body. And as you were talking about too, with having liquids, which are structured water, and having pure, you know, structured water coming into the body begins to heal very quickly. You know, it's only until we overcook things and separate everything and, you know, break it all down that it falls apart. But, you know, the energy from the sun, from the earth, is so powerful, you know, and the whole system now, at least as I've seen, is about like keeping us indoors, not seeing the sun, you know, putting petroleum-based products and baking them into the skin to block out the spectrums, which you can see the intention. You know, it's to lower our frequency or our essence or our aura, and then try to bring us down into this feeble state. But the thing is I keep seeing, in my opinion, of just the awakening that keeps occurring, and it's only going to keep happening because it's like I said, people have gotten to that point where, you know, they're just focused on more and abundance, and rather than the nonsense of fear and I'm running out of everything, you know, because you can only push people into a corner so much until they begin to rebel, which is funny because bells, you know, the frequency and everything. So it's interesting as you get into all of these, but I connect a lot of dots that you do, and I think that's why our path connected us.
I appreciate that it did. I really, you know, admire you. I think you're a sharp and kind and smart fellow, and I really love the way you've taken this on, because you speak to a lot of truths that, you know, you have courage. And, you know, to remember this, that's been part of my path with this, you know, personal health practice that I've been undergoing, this path, you know, of spiritual and mental and physical health, is that our heart, you know, it taps into our conversation too. Your heart has this electromagnetic field that's so much larger than what comes off of your head or any of your other organs, you know, and like in astrology, in medical astrology, it corresponds with the sun. And, you know, when you know something in your heart, you know it without a doubt. And it's also that place of compassion and of courage, you know. And so I think this, you know, sort of dawning is moving out of our heads and into our hearts, because we all know this stuff. Everybody knows, everybody, you know, has the wisdom within them that when you step outside barefoot and you hear some birds sing and you see the sun, it lifts you up. You just feel it, you know. You don't have to be told that to know that, you know. So just learning to trust our guides and have that courage, I think, is a huge part of our moving forward. And I think it is an inevitability, like you say. And, you know, I think that the way in which the, the social architects, I'll call them, have, you know, been contriving and they're trying to do so much to bring us down, because we are so powerful. And our connection, that power comes through our connection with nature and the, you know, larger cosmos. And everything they're trying to contrive and do here is so small compared to this like larger cosmic scene that's going on that we're a part of. That, you know, it's really kind of silly. It's like a kid trying to like resist, you know, going to bed or something like that, you know. Yep. Where eventually they're just going to get tired out and go to bed, you know.
Well, and the thing is like you said, is, you know, they're working around the clock to do this. But the fun part is that we have the internet, and the internet has really changed everything. You know, because now me and you can connect from all over different parts of the world. You know, we can connect to all different type of people. You know, you can learn about all different types of things in all different types of languages. You know, you can read books from times in which, you know, are published in a small library in the middle of a, you know, a small little island and things like that, and tap into this information. But, you know, that's part of the revolution I see, is because as we connect more and we talk about our experiences, which is another crucial part, then people start to see a different side. And that's how the truth comes out, because everything I learned when I was in my, you know, dark rabbit holes of, you know, they're doing all these things and everything else, is it just kept me in this dark rabbit hole, and that was it. And when I started to learn the solutions, I was like, wow, that's it. That's all we had to do. We just had to go out with some dowsing rods and we can find water that's unlimited. Wow. Well, that solved all that with the water on the stock market situation. You know, so just all these things that we can do, and that I think is important that you said too, is going with your heart and your instinct. You know, instinctively, you know what to do. You've felt that your whole life, you know, and it's just turning that back on. And I think all of us, especially after 2020, have really turned on that instinct and that, you know, this doesn't make any sense, you know, type of situation, and trusting our heart, and then also showing more love and compassion, because everything 2020 was dividing and conquering. Now we have the flip side where people are coming together, you know, and you see this, even I'll see people on social media where someone will say something, another person will say something, and then they'll write like much love afterwards, or, I let love be with you, or whatever it may be, and they don't even argue. And it's just amazing, because that's what we're supposed to be doing, because that small group of people, or whatever things they may be, are trying, you know, to keep us all divided from talking to one another. Because if we talk like this and just have a very simple conversation, there's many more people, millions of people, who are also feeling the exact same way. And then it gives us the ability to align with that, and align with our path, and connect more rather than divide. Because that divide keeps us from sharing knowledge with one another. Because if you figured out something great that's with gardening, and it's not shared and people can't connect, well, then that information is just lost. And that's why I see the internet as a beautiful blessing to all of us, because you can find information on anything now. Now, it doesn't have to be 100% true, because there are things, obviously, Google and everything that does, and whatever. But it really gives you a different side, in which we never got, because before it was the newspaper and the radio, and that's it. And it was one side, whatever that newspaper said, that's what it was, even if it's not true. Now we have the ability to investigate and then ask other people what their experience are, so that we can learn from that. But I see it as all, you know, what it was originally created for, and then now what I see it's being used for. It's just two different parallels. And that's the same paths that we can take. You can have the path of abundance over here, or you could have the path of chaos over here. It's just up to you, to what you decide that you want your day to be, or your life to be. And it's your path. That's why I've learned it's your path to do what you wish, you know, but we're all going to just keep either moving this way and kind of moving that way.
I totally appreciate that. You know, I think it's important to give people the dignity of choice, you know, that everyone deserves that dignity. And it's interesting the way, you know, all these things that were meant to divide us, you know, like you're saying, the internet was sort of, you know, social media was kind of devised as like a control mechanism, you know, to psychoanalyze us, and to, you know, play at our, you know, most, you know, weak, you know, places. And also what happened in 2020, and the way that was meant to divide us. But the outcome was that people are now craving more of that connection. People are gardening more, to be more, you know, sovereign, you know, because, you know, while they were all on lockdown, they couldn't like do anything. They go outside and be out, you know, be with their family and work in the garden. And, you know, it gave them that opportunity. And so I think that that's going to continue to happen. Something else that comes to mind, you know, is the Hopi prophecy. You know, there's the prophecy rock, and it shows that, like Dolores Cannon said, you know, that there's this potential at this time of this bifurcation of people who basically choose the technocracy, and the control system, and people who choose nature and spirit, or um, some people don't like that word, but maybe just your internal well-being, you know, um, and that essentially these going to be these two worlds going on simultaneously. And like you said, I feel that that's very much the case, you know, and yet we're all still interconnected. And just to develop that compassionate mind, that loving mind, you know and even include those people who have made those choices. You don't have to include what they do, but just to care for them, and give them the dignity of their choice. So love all that. I wanted to talk to you. There's so many things. Like, I was making notes and I was like, oh my gosh, we're never going to be able to talk about all of this. But some of the things I wanted to talk with you about are things like I think of these things in terms of earth, wind, fire, and water, right? The alchemical chemical elements, and that could be solid, liquid, gas, and energy, in terms of sort of modern parlance. But so we talked a little bit about energy and how there's this energy everywhere, and there's all these ways in which we can connect in with energy. And we talked a little bit about earth, and electroculture and permaculture. And you mentioned water, and the whole thing of like living structured water from juices and stuff. But I'm wondering if you've studied any about hydrogen water, and the effects of hydrogen water. You're a wealth of knowledge, so that's why I put it to you.
So with the hydrogen water, there's a guy, I think it's the Brown gas. It's with the Brown gas device. And he talks about the benefits of hydrogen water. And I forget what his name is, but he has a Brown gas device that increases the hydrogen in the water. And it's interesting too, because when I was researching about people who are dehydrated, they're lacking the hydrogen molecule in their body. So usually you can heal that with salt. That's usually one way to do that. You can do that with breath work as well too. But the hydrogen molecule is missing from the water, or has been pretty much decimated. And as they bring back the hydrogen, then they bring back the hydration. So, when I got into that topic, it's interesting because water is fascinating. You get into like the work of Victor Schauberger, where he was spinning everything, creating vortices and vortexes, because that's how water is supposed to move. Our pipes don't move in the correct way, so they don't keep the structure of the water because everything's in straight lines. Versus how things are supposed to curve naturally, how streams and rivers, you see that curve almost kind of like a snake, and that's supposed to be there. But when I got into the hydrogen water thing, I've read a lot about it. I've seen there's a lot of devices. I never really kind of moved into everything when it comes to certain devices, just because I got a thing with electricity and Rockefellers and that whole situation, and it's hard to have trust. I have not a lot of trust in certain things, but stirring water brings back the structure in the water. And people used to sing to the water as they would stir it, for 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and then they'd stir back the other way. So I kind of stick to things that I feel that resonate with the natural way. If me and you were out right now on the land and we had to figure out the water, we would have to use something natural, and it would probably be a stick and our voices and chanting and some sort of sound frequency. So that's kind of my thing with it. But I've seen a lot of things. I've heard great success stories with the brown gas and all these things, but I really never dabbled into them myself. But I've heard some great stories on that topic.
Yeah, it's just something I've come into, sort of recently, and I definitely love playing with structuring water. Like, you're always talking about copper vessels, but you could use gold or crystal or glass, and one thing we used to do is we just take a glass jar, fill it with water, drop a crystal in it, and put it in the sun.
Yes.
And that would be a great way to structure water. And I'm really fond of those kinds of things too, that you can have a direct relationship with and a natural relationship. And supposedly also when you eat raw fruits or you make fresh pressed juices, that has added hydrogen. And they have done, I know they've done like, I think it's like 1,400 double blind, studies, basically meta studies about hydrogen and its ability to heal all manner of diseases. And this whole thing of, most of our bodies are water, most of the bodies of plants are water, and the structure of water as just this, it's like the next generation of computers, I believe they're looking at using water crystals rather than silicone crystals, because there's more informational density in a crystal of water than there is in a crystal of anything else. And that water exists in 3 phases, unlike any other substance. It can be solid, liquid, or gas. So there's sort of like this magical quality about water, and to play with water in that way, I love. The stirring, or the crystals, or I've seen, people making like copper orgone collectors that they can like put around their water. Stuff like that's really fun. So,
and Wilhelm Reich was big on the water. His cloudbusters were connected up to water. He had the tubes which were connected to the cloudbusters, which were connected to the water, and that's what he was using as the source of energy. Because water is, like you said, there's the unlimited energy there. But it's interesting too, because when you think of animals and they go out into the wild and they lick those things of salt, the little salt, it's like a little rock. That it's interesting because those, I found out, have 14 hydrogen molecules in them. So you get tons of hydrogen when they're licking those little salt blocks that they're always going out to eat. And then if you think of the animal, it licks the salt. It has the salt now in its body. It stays hydrated and then doesn't need water for a long period of time. So, the hydrogen plays a role. You got H2O. You got 2 molecules of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. So, you see this and go, there is connections. And then when you go into fuel, there are many cars which can run on hydrogen and water. 1976, you have the car that ran on water, and you have a whole bunch of other patents of cars running on hydrogen and getting phenomenal gas mileage, hundreds of miles to the gallon. It's just not talked about. But, we can be using water and the hydrogen to run our cars, run vehicles, trucks, trains, all kinds of things. But a lot of this has always kind of stayed put because we're always focused on the oil and that whole system. But it's interesting because my buddy said, when they make natural, I think he was saying make natural gas. I think he was saying that when they make natural gas, they produce water. So he's like, how do we run out of water if we're always making it, to get the natural gas or something like that? And I thought that's hilarious because the same industry would tell you we're running out of water, but they're creating water the whole time to create the other system that we have. So how can we run out of anything when it's always being created all the time?
Right. And, that's the most abundant element in the universe is hydrogen.
Yes.
And so it's that kind of as above, so below reflection of there's this hydrogen all through the whole, universe and in us and in the, on Earth. And so that's why I love this conversation. Why I love what you do is breaking up these concepts of lack, that there really is no lack. There's no lack of energy. There's no lack of water. The only lack of food is one that's contrived, and that's all through these systems of control. You mentioned also the hydrogen cars, and that kind of ties back into more thoughts about energy. I know you've talked a lot about Tesla, and so I know from my research, there's this whole thing of 0-point energy and over unity machines, and that there's been many over unity engines that have been created, but they were, put down, patents bought from people and then shelved, or people disappearing, or all this kind of stuff. There's a great documentary called, what is it called? The Lost Century, that goes into how we're a century behind technologies that have been developed. And you talk about this quite a bit, even with the 100-year light bulb. I shared that with some people and their minds were blown, when they actually Googled it and they're like, oh, wow, that's an actual real thing. And it's like, yeah, this is all contrived. We don't need these light bulbs that break and LEDs that have this negative effect on our biology,
Well, and when you get into the technology, it's exactly what you said, the centennial light bulb. It's the oldest burning light bulb on the planet. And it's been burning for 100 and I think it's 110 years. And it's a 4-watt incandescent bulb. You know, the bulbs that they wanted to ban because they said that they're not efficient and all of that nonsense that we were told. But you have the oldest burning bulb on the planet, and it's only using 4 watts. You know, but we have all these like 20s, 60s, 120 watts, 150 watts. And, you know, the great documentary on that is The Light Bulb Conspiracy. And they talk about how, you know, the electric companies got together and they started finagling the light bulbs to make them so they didn't last as long. And then they needed, you know, customers coming back. And then once they did that with the light bulbs, they started doing it with technology. They started doing it with cars. They started doing it with clothes. You know, they showed like the first nylon ever made. They could like pull a tank with it because it was so strong. But then DuPont got together and reduced that down so that it just fell apart. You know, so you see this and go, oh, what I remember when I watched that documentary, I was like, this is crazy. You're making everything fall apart and then blaming us that things are being polluted, right? Because you created things to have the pollution, and then you banned hemp on top of it, which was a beautiful resource, you know, connected to nature, which was very strong, and that was removed. But yeah, when you look into all of this, you see how a lot of things were removed. And then when you get into the patent offices, you see that the oil companies run the patent offices. So if anything that comes in that's not oil related gets banned or suppressed or removed. And then you have the 1951 Secrecy Act, which was to deem any inventions dangerous to the country, they would get rid of. And if you think about Nikola Tesla, as we were just talking about, he had a car, 1943, that ran on the ether, the energy of the earth, and that patent or that car was never brought to life. They had pictures of it, but it never came, you know, on to availability. So you start to see all this and see how we're so behind. You know, we are so behind. I mean, they even had pictures of, you know, computers, 1950s. You know, you had the first cell phone or telephone back in 1908, you know, wireless telephones that would connect into the earth and you could talk to your friends and family through the earth. You know, so we're using a cell phone in 1992, and it's like this technology has been around and safer, much safer at that time, you know, in the 1900s. And now we have all this inefficient stuff. And the most mind-blowing one was when I was looking up the electric vehicle of, I believe it was 1888 with, I believe, Edison, if he was a real person. But he had a car that got 1,000 miles to the charge, and it was electric vehicle. Last year, they announced that they had a groundbreaking technology of an electric vehicle with 250 miles to the charge. How is that groundbreaking if we already had the technology back in 1888? You know, so people have to really see through all of this and go back in time. I'm big on going back into books before 1920 so that people can see the truth and then also connect with that. Because as soon as you see inventions like that, people start saying, how do I make it? I'm going to make it for my family. I'm going to make it for my friends. We're going to try to reinvent this stuff. And that's what we need to be doing too, because we need to be going back to that time in which people were creating and bring back that innovation that we are now lacking today.
I think you're right. And I think it's something that we should approach from an open source kind of a way, because that's the way they always get us, is this connection with, you know, all of this plant obsolescence, as you pointed out, is due to economic drivers, you know, economic motivations. And people will have come up with thousands of these over unity machines, and then they holding on to their little patent because they want to be able to capitalize on it. But if we open source this information, then there's no controlling it anymore. Then it's wildfire, you know. And you know, there's some, you know, I think in terms even of just the simple things like, you know, it takes a certain mind to do the engineering and understand all those things. But even gardening, like, you know, after World War II, the Victory Gardens fed the majority of our population, you know, and it was just people in their backyards just growing vegetables, you know, and how much we could reclaim of our sovereignty just by growing food, you know, for ourselves, and how that creates community resilience, not just individual resilience, but community resilience. Because if all your neighbors are doing that, and I'm growing, amaranth, and you're growing potatoes, and we can trade and we can share. And if I have a bad year, and you have an overage, then what are you going to do with the overage? We want to share it, because every gardener knows when your apple tree goes off, there's more apples than you can actually eat, or put away, or dry, or anything like that. So that, and it's a really great way in my mind to connect in with this sense of pronoia, that the universe is conspiring in our favor, not against us. And
I like how you said that, because when I got into the electroculture situation, and it's taken off, gardening has gone through the roof. You had 2020, you had 150,000 searches, per month in 2020. 2021, you had about 300,000. 2021, you're moving into almost 1 million. In 2022 and 2023, you've moved into almost 3 million searches per month. So people are realizing they want to grow their own food. They don't want to be part of this weird system and be able to give to their friends and family. But as I got into all of this, people could be exchanging, trading, giving food to one another. And like you said, I had a friend who here in Scottsdale, she grew some apples. She was doing electroculture with her apple trees. And her whole tree is apples. She's like, I got more apples than I've ever had ever, and it's just like coated with apples. And she's like, every person gets apples now. They come over, I give them apples. They got apple pie, they got apple this, because you got so many apples. And apples have beautiful enzymes in them that help heal the body from almost everything. But, when you get into this, you go, we can have abundance. It's all there, and it's meant for us to connect with. And, the other part that comes with growing food is sometimes when people are stressed out about growing food, when animals come and eat their food, they get angry. They're like, the animal has taken my food. Well, the animal needs to eat too. So we have to have that. We coexist with nature. Deer, squirrels, chickens, everything. We coexist with everything. I have birds who eat my oranges. That's what happens. And then everything comes and they eat them. So be it. So that's the part we have to realize too, because we've been put in this state, like you said, where it's mine, that's ego too. It's mine and it's nobody else's, but we need to share. And same with technology. I know a lot of people, and that's why I try to share their books, because I know a lot of people I've read in their books, they didn't share a lot of the information in which I've read in the book. And that was because they've waited towards the opportunity to share it. And the problem with that is the one guy, he actually passed away before they even gave him a chance to speak. So all of his information is now lost because of that. And then you sit there and think it's all in this book, and his legacy lives in this book. So it's so important that if people know something, to share it. And then, like you said, creating communities and sharing amongst each other to help elevate and uplift each other. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And if every person, like you said, Victory Gardens, which were a popular one, everybody had food, well, then you don't got to worry about what the price of something is, of what they're trying to, sell you, because you already got it. You got cucumbers, tomatoes, potatoes, all those beautiful things. You now can trade amongst with your friends who now grow something else, and then it's a completely different world. But if you're contained and you can't do that, then it's a different story.
Yeah, totally. This need to connect is something with each other and with nature at large, I see to be like the panacea, to the problem, because, just this, it's something we can't avoid. We're inextricably interconnected, and it actually psychologically, if you do something for someone else, it does the same thing to your brain physiologically as if you're the receiver of a gift, or something nice. So it's something that benefits us on every single level possible. And it, in this time where there is such a sense of division, because it's being sown intentionally, whether it's you got the jab or you didn't get the jab, or whether you're what your gender views are, or what everything under the sun, they're trying to make into a wedge that they can drive between us. And we got to realize that we are one human family on this planet amongst a family of other beings, like you said, the plants, the animals, and when we can open up to that, it actually makes our life so much more fulfilling, to being connected with our human brothers and sisters, with the animals, with the plants, with the elements of the earth and the sky and the sun and the moon. And so it's a beautiful message. I love what you share. We're coming up to the end of our time. I want to respect your time. Gosh, I have so many things other things I wanted to talk to you about, like monatomic gold and like, rainwater harvesting and exclusion zone water and pyramids and chemtrails and magnetic motors. But perhaps we'll be able to get together again for another talk. Last one, though, I do want to touch base on, you and I are both you have your own superfood company. I'm part of a superfood company. Just if you want to touch on what you have to offer out there for the human family to, get into these greater states of health and awareness, and just superfoods and their benefits in general.
So I had a lot of health ailments back in the past, and it was just cleaning up my diet, going all organic, and realizing that there's certain foods that can feed certain pathways and turn certain things back on. And a few of them being, a couple of them that are on our website, are shilajit, pearl powder, and dragon's blood. And I would say those are the three top superfoods that I talk about all the time. Shilajit is it's ancient soil that has been compressed by the mountains. And that compression is just filling it with nutrients. You have all that soil breaking down, the decomposition of everything, and everything just squeezing together, which creates the piezoelectric effect, which we could talk about as well too. But, you have that squeezing that's occurring by the compression of the mountains, and that beautiful shilajit has 84 of 102 minerals, and it's high in fulvic acid. Fulvic acid is great at detoxing the body, pulling things out of the body, and it's also necessary for plants. Fulvic acid and humic acid are necessary for plants too. So you get all these beautiful minerals to help heal the body and restore the body, because a lot of our foods, as we've talked about with monoculture, are missing all the nutrients. The last study done on organic food was done in 1992. It showed that organic food yielded 100 times more nutrients than conventional that are sprayed with pesticides and everything else. So with shilajit, you're bringing those minerals back into your body. And then with the fulvic acid, it helps detox and cleanse out the gut lining. Because a lot of people, what happens is you got so much stuff sitting in your gut lining that it slows down your brain and it slows down the rest of your body, because there's all that digestion taking place, the crunching that's going on in your stomach. So shilajit can come in there and help cleanse all that out. And then next you move into pearl powder. You're going into pearls, the moon energy, the pearl, the essence of life, creation, or a seed of creation. And so, you get into pearls, you have magnesium carbonate in there, you have selenium carbonate, you have a whole bunch of amino acids which help restore the connective tissues of your skin and help feed the body. A lot of the times when people are suffering from restless leg syndrome, they're missing magnesium, and pearl can come in there and help calm the central nervous system. And then they've also shown that pearl helps restore glutathione levels, which are very important because our liver is on a constant, battle with the nonsense that we deal with. They're always trying to shut down certain pathways. So the pearl can come in there, help heal the liver, heal the spleen, and get that whole connective pathway going again. Because that's also part of the water that we talked about. We talked about hydrogen. You have 2% structured water in pearl so that you can bring back the structure to the body. Because as we talked about, if you're dehydrated, body falls apart. And then the last one that we have on there, we have mushrooms as well, which I can talk about, but I just keep it simple. But we have our dragon's blood, which is an ancient tree sap. This is connecting you to the sap of the plant. Turpentine, maple syrup, all those beautiful things that are great for the body, the saps that everybody used to use. But it's an ancient tree sap that has over 3 million antioxidants on the ORAC value, the highest on the planet. And it's really great at restoring the connective tissue of the skin, and then also cleaning up the gut lining and cleaning out the blood. Because that's another one I know we don't talk too much about, cleaning the blood, restoring the blood, even beets, cleaning out the blood, getting everything going with the blood, because your blood is your life. There's water in there and all the structures in there. But dragon's blood is great at cleaning that up. And if anybody's suffering from skin issues, you can put dragon's blood on topically, or you can take it internally, and it'll help clean up those skin issues. Because it's interesting, they showed studies where a person had a wound and they used dragon's blood and they would heal within 3 days, versus the people who did not consume dragon's blood would heal after 14 days. So it gets into the whole stem cells, regeneration, and bringing in vital minerals, because that's what I realized. We're just missing things for each pathway. And as we bring those things in, we can start to heal like that. And if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, we can't really heal. But we have all of these beautiful superfoods on our website, cultivateelevate.com, with all the studies. I try to link everything and more information on there. But everything is about, my whole thing is elevating people on their home, their terrain, and how you can help elevate your health. Because when I had a lot of health issues, I had a bunch of professionals who told me it was genetic and I'm getting older. That's what it was. 25 years old, I'm getting older and it's genetic. And I started to realize that doesn't make a lot of sense. I think you're lying to me. And then I started to take, my own initiative and realize it was what I was doing, what I was eating, what I was drinking, the frequencies that I was bringing into my terrain, the clothes, the lights, those things. And as I started to change all that, everything changed like that. And I thought that was so simple, but we're not taught about these things because it keeps us in this loop, and I realized that it's not genes and it's not any of the nonsense of you're getting older. It's just, you're not taking care of your beautiful crystalline structure or your body, your temple.
Mm-hmm. Totally well said. I love everything you just mentioned. It totally relates to my path in herbalism, but also with this breatharianism thing, like you were talking about, pearl, also the magnesium. You need more magnesium and silica and things like that for your bones, and how that's a piezoelectric carbon silica crystal, pyroelectric, and it's actually your body's actually a resonator, a semiconductor, and a superconductor. And so having these, the things like the fulvic acid, I know can also detox, I think, things like graphene and stuff like that out of the body. If you're looking for a protocol to heal, and that thing of mineral density, that all the cells want to buzz with electricity. You got to give them what they need to do that. So thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate your time with me today, Matt. I've been wanting to connect with you for a long time. It's been a wonderful heart connection. And I know the viewers got something from this. If anyone, wants to hit up Matt for his superfood products, I will be putting his links in the description. And is there anything else you want to add, brother?
No, just on that topic of, electric, is they shock you back to life, when you pass out. So think of electric right there. That's what you are. And the more you amplify that beautiful electrical conductivity of your body, the healthier you are. And the more that fades away, if you gunk up the body with all types of toxins and things, the body begins to fade away as well. So, just on that topic, think of things as just conductive and non-conductive. That's pretty much your whole body. And as you were doing breath work, like as you've been doing, taking in the energy, you're increasing conductivity. It's increasing all that beautiful conductivity. So on that topic, I just like to say, there are solutions and you don't have to live in fear.
Cheers. Cheers to that. Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much again, Matt. Thank you, everybody who showed up for the live. And everyone have a beautiful day. Remember, you are abundance. Abundance is everywhere around you. And you are an amazing, creation of the universe. And so let's go out and spread that vibe. All right. Cheers, everyone. Thanks so much. Bye, Matt.
Till next time.